How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday is your weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. It's the way we always love to start our Mentor Mondays. If you've never joined us before, here's what to expect. We have a 4-word mission statement at Life Coach Training Institute, and it is proficient coaches. We are dedicated to our coaches growing into coaching proficiency. But we don't just leave you there. That's where all the other schools leave you. The other side of it is thriving practices. We want you to be a successful, want you to run a successful coaching practice. That means that you don't only need to know the skills, but you also need to know how to get clients and all of that great stuff. And so everything that we do is always to that end. So do me a huge favor, jump inside the chat. Let us know that you are here. Say hello. Tell us where you're joining us from. If you already have a link to your website or social media, or you just want to share who it is that you work with, you know, who your ideal clients are, feel free to throw it in the chat. If you get a client out of that, we are completely fine with that. So feel free to promote yourself inside the chat or just to say hello. Also, do me a second favor, like and share this post preemptively. Why? Because it's going to be great stuff. If it's not, we don't do what we say we're going to do, you can come back and you can unlike it. That's what you can do. But do me a huge favor, like it preemptively. And I'll also save it there for you so that you can come back to this, because one of the things that we always do in these trainings is that, I always try to encourage, I always try to inspire, but I always try to give you something. And so what we always do during these times is we give you coaching tools. We give you a lot of other things that you can utilize. In a second, I'll tell you how you can get the slides from tonight. Let me say hello to a couple of people who are saying hello to me. Frank's joining us from East Tennessee. Good to see you, Frank. Karen's joining us from Georgia. Dan is joining us from Indiana. There's Dan's website, Elevation Life Coaching for Men. If you want to check out Dan, Dan obviously is coaching men. So if you go there, you're interested in Dan and his services, go ahead and do that. Karen says, my website will be mydivinefreedom.com. I'm still working on it and trying to pinpoint my niche. So you can find Karen over there. Again, if you are just joining us, say hello to me. Let us know that you are here. Jump inside the chat. Also, feel free to post your website, post your social media. If you're looking for your ideal clients, you know who they are. Talk about it. Tell us who your ideal client is, who you work with, and all of that good stuff. We want you to get clients. So feel free to use this time to be able to gain clients, get some social media traction, website traction, or even SEO traction, because, well, Google is going to look at your links compared to other kinds of things. Christy from Houston, Aligned AF Mastery is my website. Name and coaching program is loading. Cool. All right. Well, keep those messages coming in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in. We are in, I believe, week 5 of this series that's called Coaching Through Life's Pressure Points. And where do we find ourselves this week? It's actually one of my favorite subjects. It's not really the subject of a client being unfulfilled. What I would say it is that is at least the subject matter, because that's the problem. But the solution that we find to client fulfillment, it doesn't have to be a problem. I'm going to show you actually how to help your clients with that. Before we jump in, if you want the slides, it's worth it. Text the keyword slides, no other words, just the keyword slides, to 833-258-7547. I'll give you about 20 seconds to get that. It'll have all of the stuff that I'm covering. It'll have coaching questions. It'll have tools, all of that other stuff. So it's worth it. It's beautiful. It'll keep you from having to take such copious notes. You can always look back at your notes, but do that. I'll give you about 10 more seconds to do that. I'm just slightly ahead of you guys, but it's okay, because in real time, you're getting this in. It'll go right to your phone. Text that number, and then you'll have the link to be able to get that. Whoops. Didn't mean to hit that. I meant to hit this to get that out of the way. So let's talk about fulfillment just for a second. And I think what a lot of people think is that the issues of fulfillment get dealt with when you achieve a goal, and not necessarily. because you can find a lot of people, whether they are rich, whether they have great families, whether they have a great career, whether they have all of the stuff and they check off all of the boxes and everything. Have you ever noticed that you can see, you've probably met some of these people who seem to have it all, but for some reason are still unfulfilled? It's not really uncommon at all. And what I'm going to help you understand is, as you're coaching people, because this is going to come up quite often, are clients who are seeking fulfillment in their life. And you know what? There's nothing worse than going after something that you feel like is really important in your life that doesn't actually fulfill you. It's kind of like that old metaphor of climbing up a ladder and then getting to the top and realizing you put your ladder in the wrong place and it was supposed to go over there. And so fulfillment doesn't have to be a mystery like that. You can actually understand. It's really important for us to understand where fulfillment actually is sourced from. And if you know where it's sourced from, then you know what you can do? You can actually align everything else including goals and everything else, so that when someone achieves a goal, there actually is fulfillment because it was aligned with what they really wanted to begin with. So let me jump a couple of slides so that we can talk about this. What is the pressure point of fulfillment? Well, some clients don't feel stuck. They actually just feel empty. And they're checking off every box. They are showing up. They're doing everything that is expected, but it's not really landing anymore. They built a life that looks right, but something still feels off. Still doesn't feel right. Still doesn't feel satisfying. And hint, it is a feeling. Fulfillment is a feeling. Fulfillment does not look like achieving a goal or checking off a box like we might think, unless the goal or the box was related to something else. And what is that something else? I'm getting ready to show you. So they're often just running on autopilot. They're performing, they're producing, they're providing, but the problem is that they still feel off. And sometimes when a client comes to you, they may feel like, well, maybe I just need more accountability. Maybe what my problem is with not feeling very fulfilled is that I just need more accountability to just keep pushing through. Because here's what happens is that a lot of times motivation falls off. A lot of times apathy sets in. A lot of times the emotions aren't really being touched. And so sometimes, to try to just keep pushing through, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't feel like pushing through, but I know that I need to push through. So maybe if I have a coach, they can just hold me accountable. Or maybe a coach can just help me achieve a goal. Or maybe a coach can kind of just help keep me motivated. But listen, your job as a coach is not to cheerlead people. That's really not what your job is. As a matter of fact, you can't be responsible for keeping their motivation intact. And so one of the things that happens often is that coaches who do not know where the source of fulfillment is actually coming from will solve the wrong problem. I don't want you solving the wrong problem. So let's get to the bottom of root kinds of things so we can understand what problem that we're supposed to be solving. What they are actually feeling is a symptom of a problem. But we've got to go to the root and actually deal with the problem. Because I will tell you this, that the problem that needs to be solved is not a goal that needs to be achieved. It's not a box that needs to be checked off. It's that oftentimes people in the midst of doing things lose their why. And they may not come to you and say, I need you, Dan, I need you to help me find my why. Karen, I need you to help me find my why. You're probably not going to hear that. What you might hear are some other things. I'll give you some examples of that. But you are going to hear something that sounds like they don't feel very fulfilled, or I don't feel very motivated. What's the impact of not knowing your why? Well, here's the impact. Is that you can have a full life, and you can have that full life. You can have the family, you can have the car, you can have the house, you can have the career, you can have all of those things and still feel empty. Life starts to feel mechanical. You can have a full schedule, but you have an empty soul. And you know what happens when you don't know what your why is that your wins don't really feel like wins anymore. Decisions actually get harder. And this is a major symptom right here of not knowing your why, because decisions get harder because nothing actually feels anchored. If you see someone who is indecisive and they don't know which way to go and they're having a hard time making a decision, it is a classic case of someone who doesn't know their why. They don't know what's most important. So know this is that when you're seeing these kinds of things, I'm giving you the symptoms that you should look for. In a second, we'll show you what clients will often say. But these are symptoms. You know, it looks like success, it doesn't feel like success. They can't really tell you in many cases what is actually wrong, because when you look at their life, nothing really looks wrong. And so clients start chasing external fixes, but this is an internal problem that we need to actually go after. In frustration, as I warned you just a second ago, when you start seeing people come into apathy, that is a really, really bad place. They stop dreaming and they start settling. And so if you're looking for what a potential client, what one of your clients that possibly has an issue here, these are some of the things that you might hear them say. So if you hear a client say, I have a good life, I just don't feel it. See, that's the thing, is that they can usually acknowledge that things really aren't going that bad. They can acknowledge I should be happy based on blank, because that's logical, but they just don't feel it. A couple of other things you might hear them say. Everything's fine, but I'm not. Maybe they'll say, I should be grateful, but something's missing. See, what happens a lot of times with this something that is missing, that's why people will search for something external. Maybe if I do this, maybe if I check off this, maybe if I add this, and they'll find again that they're searching for something. But again, it's not external. We're talking about an internal work. You might hear them say something like, I'm tired, but not in a physical way. So listen for these kinds of things. I feel disconnected from myself. All of those are really good cues of someone who doesn't know what their why is. Now, I'm getting ready to show you a tool where you can help clients really cut the fog and get clear about what their why is. But I will tell you this, is that I have a longer, it's about an hour and a half long training on how to help clients find their why. It's on our YouTube. There's a tool that goes along with that. And I show you a few different ways that you can go about it, in addition to what I'm getting ready to show you, which is kind of like a hybrid of all of those things. So you can always go on our YouTube and you can find that as well. So let's talk about the why for a second, because I want you to understand another word that we can use for why. And I'm going to walk off camera just for a second, because I don't have this in front of me. And so now that I do have it, I can show you. There's a lot of different ways that we can help people find their why. One of those things, I'd say your why is actually your values. There's a box right here. I can't really show it to you. Maybe I can just put it on this camera and you can see it a little bit better. Yes, you can see it a little bit better. That's it right there. The why core values, that's focus right there. There you go. The why core values. It's a really cool tool. I used to have a link where you could get like a discount or something like that. I don't think I have that for you today. All it is a core values deck, and there's probably 150 that people can like go through and organize. Here's like knowledge, here's like parenting, here's like nature, and so what a client is able to do, and they have some core values kinds of tools that you could recommend as well, where there might be a word bank or something like that. I don't recommend using an online tool for this, because I haven't seen any that are very good, and it's probably going to lead them to a dead end. When we talk about your why, we're really talking about what is most important. And when it comes to a core value, that is where fulfillment actually comes from. A core value or your why is always, there's always an internal. See, the funny thing about a why is you're not really aware of it. It's not a tangible thing that's out in front of you all the time, but it's making decisions for you a lot of times. And what it's also doing is that it's either leading you to fulfillment or it's leading you to absolute misery. If you've ever found yourself miserable about a decision or that somehow you didn't do enough or whatever, it's always related to something that was really important to you that you did not follow through on. Or, and here's the thing is that if you know what your core values are, if you know what your why is, then it is due north for you because it informs how you would go about it. It informs and gets you really clear about what's most important, makes you incredibly decisive about things in your life. And what it'll do is it'll align everything. And if you know what's most important, then you will always make choices aligned with what's most important. I'll give you an example of this. Years ago, there was a friend of mine, and we hadn't been friends for a really long time, but we were talking about some of these things about why he felt off, why he felt like he did. He had a great career, he had a great family, he had two wonderful kids, they lived by the beach, all these great things that are going on in life. And we're talking, and he's just telling me that he's still not very fulfilled in his life. He's not very happy about things in his life, even though he should be. And so we started talking, and in my mind, I mean, it could be a lot of different things. He had achieved everything that he seemed to have pursued in terms of, well, now he's got a law degree and he's got all of these different things that he's done. But I knew that it wasn't over there in the external that there was an answer over there, but he might have thought that. And so the reality was, is as we start asking questions, then I find out that when did he know that he wanted to be an attorney? See, because sometimes people will be things that are actually not aligned with what their values are, but they'll do it for some other kinds of reason or whatever. Well, the thing was is that we went back in time in his life, and what he was doing, becoming an attorney, was something that he really wanted to do. But as I started hearing his story, he also had a value for family. He gets married and then they have kids. And what ends up happening in his life is that the thing that he was doing as an attorney and ended up somehow getting off track a little bit because he realized he was just working in the field that he was doing, and some of the tasks that he was doing as an attorney was just a means to an end. It's to provide for his family. Now, it was satisfying that one value in his family, to provide for them, to give them security, to give them things that they need and everything else. But there was this other part in his life that was dying. And it's kind of like, okay, what is it that you still feel unfulfilled because you're an attorney and you're taking care of one of your big line items in your life, which is your family? And as we started talking, I asked him, what was it that got you into the field? What was it that drew you into it? And the thing is that there was some big part of him that looked like social justice. It was about helping people and helping the less fortunate and all this. Like there was something in him that really wanted to fight for people who had been victimized. And that's what had brought him into the field. So then I asked him, I was like, well, what part of the legal field do you work in now? And he actually was working for an insurance company. But he's on the other side of the insurance company. He wasn't fighting for the victims. He was actually fighting for the insurance company. And literally, to fight for the insurance company meant that his job was to keep them from paying out any of the things on the policy. See, it's a very interesting thing is that he was miserable because even though he hadn't thought about it and processed it, the reality is that he knew what due north was because he knew deep inside what his values were, but he wasn't living his value. Or at least he kind of was from the standpoint of, well, I'm choosing to do this job because now I can say yes to my family and I can provide for them and everything else, but he's dying every one of those 50 hours of the week that he was working. See, this is how actually powerful knowing what the why is can bring people back to due north. And here's the funny thing is that it can get them out of pain that quickly. It can get them clear that quickly. And that's what your clients are looking for. So Here's how we'll do that. How do you help clients find their why? First off, you start with subtraction. Here's a great question that you can ask. If nothing external could define success, what would still matter to you? See, because we take things away, what it ends up doing is that it ends up clearing the noise and it spotlights what someone's intrinsic motivation is. Like if it didn't have to, like what would you do for free? What would you do if money was never an issue? Like you already knew there was $50 million in the bank account. What would you give your life to then? And see, because what happens is that so many people, their time and their money is being determined by something else, and they're usually doing something that's out of alignment. So what happens is if you take this off of, if you take that out of the way, you take that matter off the table, that it's not an issue that needs to be tabled, what is it that they would do? What is it that they would give themselves to? And see what it ends up, what you end up finding. Like if we weren't working for money and we weren't scarce in our time, what are the things that we would actually give ourselves to? And you know what you might start finding out? You might find out what somebody really always wanted to do in their life, but they couldn't get paid for it. You might find some of these things that they put away because it was impractical at some point of their life. And so this is why someone feels unfulfilled. Here's the second thing that you can ask. You want to explore fulfillment moments. So ask this question. Think back to a season of your life that felt deeply satisfying. So this is how we can use the past. Coaches don't really go in the past with regard to trying to get somebody healed or any of those other things, but we go into the past to find data points, because if I can go back to a place where they were incredibly satisfied, deeply satisfied, and there was meaning in what they are doing, that really doesn't change later on in your life. Like a value, your why is something that's very difficult to change. Like you could purposefully change it, but the reality is that whatever is there has probably been in your life since you were a young child. So if we can go back to this point, it's a data point where, and we can ask questions about that. You can ask even more probing questions about what made it meaningful. What did that feel like? What were you doing? And so if they start reverse engineering the process, they can think back to this is how I was fulfilled and brought to life. Because here's the funny thing, is that it's going to reveal patterns and personal definitions of fullness. And a lot of times people kind of assume that money or having stuff equals fullness, and it doesn't. See, a lot of times if we reverse engineered, if we go back in time and look at our life when we felt very fulfilled, we were usually not as stable financially. That's the funniest thing about it. We usually had less stuff. We usually, as a matter of fact, we might have actually had some other kinds of things back then that we don't have now, like relationships, like more time, more creative time. Maybe we were volunteering more with a certain group of people, or some, maybe you were working with kids. Maybe you were serving in your church. I don't know what that was, but there was something in that that was deeply meaningful. And it usually wasn't, in most cases, wasn't even something that you were necessarily getting paid for, or you weren't getting paid very well for it. You know what we can find in here? We can find stuff about the roles that they were living in. The area of the country, the kind of work that they so there's a lot of data points that are actually in there. So in any one of these questions, you can probe deeper. Check emotions. When did you feel most drained, and when did you feel most alive? It's really important because this uncovers alignment and dissonance in daily life. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Your why and your fulfillment of something that is most important. Why are we using all these feeling words? Because it's a feeling. So I felt, and so if you said, "Oh, my why is actually achievement. My why is learning. My why, whatever it is, fill in the blank of it." It's an interesting thing is that achievement feels like something. Learning feels like something. Family feels like something. Love feels like something. Faith feels like something. So it's not just simply a word, because a goal can say, "Hey, I made, 6 figures over here." Well, it doesn't really matter if that's not actually somehow tied to, because it may not feel like having money in the bank doesn't, the money is doing nothing, but it might feel like security. It might feel like peace of mind, right? And so what people are after is a state of being. They're not really after that thing. Like the money doesn't matter for any of us who are sitting here right now. It's what the money makes us feel like and does for us. Now, some people, that money might mean, hey, you've been really successful. So it's tied to a why of success. It might be being able to buy material things. So in that case, the value is in material stuff. It might be connected to kids in generational wealth. So that money in the bank is actually fulfilling the value of family because I'm actually supplying their needs. I'm taking care of them in some kind of way. But it also could represent just peace of mind, could represent security. It could represent, oh, I came from this and now I'm in this, so I have achieved something that that I was never able to achieve. So there's a lot of different things that it could actually represent. This is what the case is. It feels like something. Here's the last one. Number 4, name the non-negotiables. So you ask this question. If you stripped everything back, what values would you refuse to live without? And so if you can strip that down for someone, what will happen is that the why is always going to be hiding within the non-negotiables. They just don't call it a why, but when you talk in this kind of language, then you'll help them uncover those things. Here's some final thoughts. Fulfillment isn't found in more, it's actually found in alignment. And clients don't need to discover a grand calling. What they need to do is to come home to what really matters most. And that's going to be different from person to person. Once they reconnect to why, fulfillment's always going to be the byproduct of knowing what your why is and living into it. For those of you who have not gotten trained and certified, here's one of the most amazing opportunities in your life. It's our self-paced, completely, fully online life coach certification course. In our course, we've been training coaches for nearly 11 years now. We're getting close. Like this year was, or no, wait, last year was 10. We are actually in our 11th year right now. We're going to be in our 12th year in January. Wow, that went by really fast. 2014. Why didn't we do a big 10-year banner or something like that? Should have done that. We missed it though. Maybe we'll do it for 15. So this is our 7 core modules of the Life Coach Certification course. All of our modules are completely self-paced, but we support every one of those through a live Tuesday night coach training. So any of these modules, what we do from week to week is that we progress through the latest version of the course. And what it allows you to do in each one of these modules is to meet other coaches who are part of the program, get feedback on what you're working on, and also be able to connect and get some your questions answered, and also be able to find some accountability. So other coaches who are in the trenches with you and everything else. Some of the weeks, last week we did one of those, it's an all practice week. So about every 3 or 4 weeks, we come in on a Tuesday night and it's all practice, and we just give feedback to everybody who is in the room that's practicing. So our Life Coach Certification course includes 30 hours of training. It includes your live Tuesday night coach training. It includes the Q&As that are on Tuesday nights, also the practice nights, also coach connection, so you can connect with other coaches who are part of the program. You're also going to get all your onboarding documents. What we did is that we designed a template inside of Canva that's going to save you hundreds of dollars and at least 100 hours of development, because you're going to need all of those things to start working with clients. You're also going to get a 6-tool coaching tool starter pack. You're going to get hundreds of questions, and there's a lot of free bonuses. You're also going to get a free listing on lifecoachmatch.com. That's our online directory for coaches. It is top ranked on Google. And obviously, you're going to get a certificate as well as earn your credential. It's a $3,500 value. It's going to allow you to come into coaching mastery. We are fully accredited internationally, so that's going to build your credibility. You're going to be able to live into your purpose and step into freedom. And the best part is that you're not going to do this incurring any kind of debt. Our program is only $195. Why do other programs cost thousands of dollars? Because they hire closers, and you got to pay the closers. They get half of the tuition. If you want to know, closers get half of your tuition, and we don't do that because we don't think that you should be paying the salary of closers. We believe that we should be able to give you the keys to the kingdom and get started without saddling you with debt. Let me not start your career with debt and stealing all your confidence that you can't start and do this. We've made this as low risk and such a no-brainer. That's why that link is inside the description of this video. It'll take you all of 90 seconds to get enrolled, and you can start immediately. And you can join us tomorrow night for Tuesday night coach training. For those of you who are interested in becoming a certified Christian coach, we have an advanced program where you can earn a certified professional Christian coach credential. And this new cohort, the first live class is actually this Thursday. And I know it says that we have 5 spots left. We do not have 5 spots left anymore. I believe that we have 4 spots left. So if you're interested in doing that, you need to get enrolled in that. And that link is right off of our website. What is included? Well, Masters Academy goes a step farther than a life coach certification course. What we do in these 6 weekly live sessions is that I introduce you to the IIPP transformational coaching model. There is nothing like it in the industry. It is a spiritually intuitive coaching model that goes past what most coaching models actually do. Coaching model that we kind of see takes the best of psychology and you try to work with it. But honestly, it's a humanistic model, and it's very limited at the end of the day. What if you could sit there with a client and be able to listen on 2 levels, spiritually intuitive level at the same time that you're listening to the soul of a person that's in front of you? Breakthrough happens extraordinarily quickly because it's not just you operating. We're actually inviting God into the session to speak. Not a prayer before the session. That's not Christian coaching. Just because you pray does not make something Christian any more than you go into McDonald's makes you a hamburger. And so it's a completely different model. There's nothing that's like it in the industry. And the best part is our coaches' lives are transforming, and they're seeing their clients' lives transforming. This program also includes nearly 70 pages of tools and questions that is based on the model. And the cost is only $395. If you don't have your basic credential yet, then you can enroll for the bundle, which is only $495. And what that'll allow you to do is to earn your CLC, so your basic credential, and you do need to have that, or at least be working towards it. That's why we sell the bundle, because we're not going to cover those things again. What we do is that we put our Masters Academy on top of that. You've got some great foundational stuff, because you need to understand you're not doing counseling. Some of you who think that becoming a Christian coach means you're going to teach the Bible, that's not what Christian coaching is. It's not teaching, it's not explaining, it's not advising, it's not counseling, and it's not therapy. It is coaching. So that's why you need that basic credential, because we're going to build on that foundation in a really dynamic way. Again, we've got 4 spots left. I would jump on it like tonight. You can go to christianlifecoach.co and you can get enrolled. It'll take you all about like 90 seconds to be able to do that. Let me say hello to a couple of people before we get out of here. Christy, who is, I was trying to get it. Christy said hello. Diana from Michigan. Linda from California. Sharon says they made it. Good evening. And Jacksonville is home. Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, listen, everybody, I appreciate you guys all immensely. We're going to get this video put on replay. If you came late, you can either watch for it to come up again, or you can just pull that controller all the way back to the beginning and watch the entire thing. Hey, get enrolled. It'll take you about 90 seconds to get enrolled in our program. The links are inside the description of this video. I appreciate you guys all immensely. Have a great rest of your week, and take care.